Craig Melvin has spent much of his career cultivating a calm, trustworthy presence that feels almost timeless, the kind of steady voice that greets viewers each morning and reassures them that no matter how turbulent the world may be, someone is paying close attention. Yet behind that familiar composure lies an emotional journey rarely acknowledged, shaped by years of bearing witness to history as it unfolds, and carrying those echoes of truth long after the broadcast ends. Journalism, as Craig has come to understand over decades in the profession, is not simply about reporting facts, but about absorbing the emotional weight of stories that refuse to remain confined to a teleprompter, stories of loss, resilience, injustice, and quiet heroism that linger in the mind and heart, especially for someone who believes deeply in the responsibility of telling them with care. For viewers in their 60s, many of whom have lived through eras of profound change and remember when news anchors were steady companions through wars, social upheaval, and personal milestones, Craig's journey feels deeply familiar, reflecting a generation that learned to show up consistently, to shoulder responsibility without complaint, and to keep personal feelings carefully managed. Yet the unseen toll of this work reveals itself in subtle ways, in the moments after a difficult segment when Craig sits quietly, replaying the faces and voices he has just introduced to the nation, or in the pause before sleep when unresolved stories resurface, asking to be felt rather than filed away. Lindsay Charniak, his wife and an accomplished journalist in her own right, understands this emotional residue intimately, recognizing that the end of a broadcast does not mark the end of its impact, and she sees how Craig's empathy, which makes him so effective on air, also means that he carries more than he lets on. Their conversations at home often drift beyond schedules and logistics into reflections about the cost of always being present for other people's realities, about how years of listening deeply can both enrich and quietly exhaust the spirit, themes that resonate strongly with couples who have spent decades supporting one another through demanding careers. As Craig has moved through midlife and into a stage where perspective sharpens, he has begun to recognize that emotional endurance is not infinite and that acknowledging the weight of his work does not diminish his professionalism, but deepens it, a realization that mirrors the experience of many in their 60s who have learned that wisdom often comes from knowing when to soften rather than press on relentlessly. Lindsay's role in this evolution is not to shield him from difficult truths, but to remind him that he does not have to carry them alone, offering a shared understanding that feels especially meaningful after years of balancing public responsibility with private life. Together, they reflect on how journalism has changed, how the pace has accelerated, and how the demand for immediacy can leave little room for processing emotion. Yet Craig remains committed to the belief that thoughtful storytelling still matters, that taking the time to honor the human dimension of news is not a luxury, but a necessity. For an older audience, his journey underscores a powerful truth that the most lasting impact of a career is not measured solely by accolades or visibility, but by integrity, compassion, and the quiet resolve to keep telling the truth even when it weighs heavily. Craig's unseen emotional journey also speaks to a broader life lesson, one that resonates deeply with those who have spent decades working, parenting, and caring for others, often placing their own emotional needs last, reminding them that reflection and self-awareness are not indulgences, but earned privileges of experience. Lindsay often notes how Craig's growth has made him more present, not less driven, allowing space for moments of stillness that bring clarity rather than distance, a shift that many couples recognize as they navigate later chapters together. The echoes of truth Craig carries are not burdens he seeks to escape, but reminders of why he chose this path in the first place, grounding him in purpose even as he learns to tend more gently to himself. For viewers who have watched him over the years, his journey offers quiet reassurance that it is possible to age with integrity in a demanding profession, to remain relevant without becoming hardened, and to honor both duty and emotion. In the end, Craig Melvin's story is not just about journalism, but about a life spent listening carefully to the world and learning, over time, to listen just as carefully to oneself, supported by partnership, perspective, and the enduring belief that truth, when carried with empathy, remains one of the most meaningful contributions a person can make long after the cameras fade and the echoes of the broadcast settle into reflective silence.